This week of the Patty G Show, we are joined by the doctor himself, Mr. Oberlander, the man, the myth, the legend, the one who has just done incredible things in the healthcare space, treated and served so many patients, and also has quite a prestigious Bronco collection. All that to come in this week's episode of the Patty G Show, brought to you by Falaya, Lakeman's Health Center, Cortex, and PB&J Productions. Enjoy the show. Who are you, and what the heck do you do?
My name is Eric Oberlander. I'm a neurosurgeon in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I tend to focus on spine surgery. So I fix a lot of necks and a lot of backs.
Okay. How did you want to be a neurosurgeon?
I didn't grow up wanting to be a neurosurgeon. I kind of fell into it.
Right. That's what everyone says. They fall into neurosurgery.
Yeah. I wanted to be a pilot for a while. That was back when Top Gun was a big deal, the first one.
Right.
And then I realized that if I wanted a job, I probably should be an engineer.
Okay.
And I was good at math. And so that was what I started college as an engineering student at Virginia Tech many, many years ago. And then really, this is a long story. Should I tell it?
Tell it. Okay. We've got until you have to go to dinner.
All right. So here I am at Virginia Tech. It's back then, this is 1991, and it was probably still 70% guys, 30% girls. And I was an engineer. And I knew that if I got an engineering degree from Virginia Tech, I could pretty much, be an engineer, or I could do something else if I wanted to. I had a summer internship for 3 years at a company called Fairchild Space and Defense. This is the same Fairchild that makes the A-10 Thunderbolt, okay, the plane that most people know about. But they also make satellites, and we're doing other things. Okay. Since then, they've been bought. I forget who owns them now. But for 3 summers, I sat in a cubicle with 1,000 other engineers in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., and I hated it.
What were you doing, though?
Staring at a computer screen, crunching numbers. And so we were doing what was called finite element analysis. We're using these computer programs to do biomechanical testing of components and parts for satellites. And specifically, the one that I was working on was the Hubble Space Telescope rescue mission. Sounds super exciting, right?
It's very exciting.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. So every nut and bolt and bracket that was built to house the equipment that was taken up to space to repair the Hubble Space Telescope, every one of those little pieces of metal had to be tested using finite element analysis and designed. That's how things are designed, whether it's the parts on your car or satellites. And let me tell you, it's really boring. It's not exciting. But I did learn a skill. So I learned a skill. And I also learned that I didn't want to be an engineer. And so that's when, about my second to third year of college, I pivoted and decided, hey, maybe I want to be a doctor.
That's such a strong pivot, though. Did you have doctors in your family?
I did. I had an uncle who I have this badass uncle. He's so cool. He went to Princeton undergrad, and he went to Columbia for college, and then or for med school. Then he went to Taiwan and studied acupuncture for 6 years and became fluent in Mandarin. He then came back and became double board certified in internal medicine and psychiatry. And he was practicing in New York City. He's a lot older than me. And well, not a lot, but old enough that, he was one of the few role models that I had, even though I didn't spend a lot of time with him growing up. And he was the guy that gave me the motivation to know that I could pivot into healthcare. And so that's all I needed to hear, that, hey, man, you could do it. So I did it. Now, I kept the engineering degree. I did start to study some other stuff. French classes at Virginia Tech were the only classes that had girls in them.
The only class.
The only classes. So I took a lot of French.
So you fluent in French at least?
Well, so here's what happened. This is another I'm going off on a tangent. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay. So here I am. I'm like my third year of undergrad at Virginia Tech, and my plan was to get a minor in French. So I've been taking all these French classes, and that's where I get the girls to date. My girlfriends are like the French girls. And so one day, the dean of engineering, and I forget her name, but she was a female dean. She called me into her office, and I thought I was in trouble.
Right. She's like, why are you taking French?
Well, she goes, Oberlander, you're the only engineering student in the entire school who has taken enough French that we can possibly send you to Paris to do an exchange at an engineering school over there. And I said, that's great, but not interested. She's like, listen, Oberlander, you don't understand. They're sending 6 students over here as part of the exchange, and you're the only one we got. And I'm like, sorry, lady, not my problem. I'm trying to get into medical school. I've already added like a year onto my undergraduate at this point.
Right. I'm not going to Paris.
I'm going to be there for 5 years as is. Like, I can't do an exchange. She goes, listen, we'll give you some money. Did I tell you it's in Paris? Did I tell you that this is the MIT of France? And that you will be the first American in the history to go to this 300-year-old engineering school. And that's when I was like, tell me more.
Okay, well, I'm listening.
Yeah, so she got me with that line. It worked. And so I changed around my whole life, and I went to Paris and studied at École Nationale des Ponts et Chaussées. Okay,
sure.
So that's one of the grande écoles, okay? So these very elitist small engineering schools. This is translated, it's the school of bridges and roads. Because back 300 years ago, I mean, that's what you would do. You would go to this school and you would learn how to make a bridge or learn how to build a road. So I went and I studied, and that's really where I became fluent in French, was living over in Paris. It was a really great experience, really stressful though. They're really advanced in mathematics over there, and the math was the hard part, not the French. So I barely survived. I survived it, and I got so many French credits for doing so that I ended up with a degree in French.
So do you like still speak fluent French?
No. So that was 30 years ago, and I haven't gone back to France since.
Is like your picture on the wall at this school like the first American to step foot?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, they probably thought I was an idiot, and so
like,
they're probably embarrassed that they even let an American in the door over there.
Yeah,
but it is a feather in my cap, and it's interesting. So when I meet somebody who's French, they are actually really impressed by it, because these schools, if you want to be anybody of importance in France, whether it's a politician, a CEO of a company, or an engineer, you have to go to the engineering schools. And you have to go to one of the grandes écoles, one of the great schools. It's basically their Ivy League, but it's only for engineers. You have to go. They're incredibly elitist over there. If you don't go to one of these schools, you will never ascend the ladder in anything in France.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're going to go there and be like a CEO of somewhere.
In another life, I thought about it, but fortunately I got into medical school.
Okay.
And so I ended up going to medical school at the Medical College of Virginia, which is in Richmond, which was one of the oldest medical schools in the South. It's hard for a medical school to survive on its own as an independent medical school. And so financially it was in trouble. So then it became sequestered by Virginia Commonwealth University. So the Medical College of Virginia in Richmond is now called Virginia Commonwealth University Medical School. That happened around the time I started going there. So anyway, I went from Virginia Tech to Richmond, Virginia, and I stayed in Richmond, Virginia for 4 years of medical school, 6 or 7 years of neurosurgical residency, which is the training that it takes after medical school to actually learn how to do practical things, right? So medical school, you don't really learn anything other than books. So then you have to do your residency, which is where you actually learn how to operate, or learn how to, if you're a radiologist, learn how to read films. If you're a surgeon, learn how to operate. Neurosurgery is a long residency, so 6 or 7 years, I can't even remember, of that. And then I decided to do an additional year of training to specialize in spine surgery. So that additional year is called a fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
I did a fellowship in minimally invasive and complex spine surgery. So that just means I can do, more complex surgeries, or I can do smaller, fancier surgeries.
Why?
Well, because that's in high demand. If you live long enough, you will get a bad back. And if you're smart, you'll do research on your surgeon. No matter what you need, you should do research on your surgeon. And you really want to look for somebody who's fellowship trained.
Okay.
It's an additional level of training, and it means they're very serious and specialized in that specific area. So that's what I did, because I knew I wanted to focus on spine surgery. And then at that point in my life, I'm 35 years old, and it's 2008, and that's when I moved to Baton Rouge. But I never did answer the original question, which is how did I get into neurosurgery?
Yeah, how? Why?
All right, so I'm going to tie all these things together. So here I am, my first year of medical school.
Right.
Okay, I'm brand new medical student, don't know what I'm doing.
But very prestigious in Paris.
Yeah, right, exactly. We're basically kicked out of Paris for being a stupid American. But and of course, in America, it's meaningless. Nobody cares. But here I am, and I went to my advisor my first year of medical school, and I said, hey, I really want to do some research. How can I do some research here? I have a few skills, and maybe I could be of use. And my advisor says, the neurosurgeons do a lot of research here. We have a very strong neurosurgery program. So I'm going to introduce you to the chairman of neurosurgery. I said, well, that sounds fantastic. Great. Thank you. So my advisor sets up this meeting with the chairman of neurosurgery at Virginia Commonwealth University, who's this old, hardcore Vietnam vet named Harold Young. He actually was a neurosurgeon in the Army during the Vietnam War. He was in, I think it's called Chow Lee. I may be mispronouncing that, but it was one of those like MASH type. I mean, MASH was the Korean War, but one of those MASH type units. They were shelled. I mean, it was really high intensity stuff. And this guy was really old, old school, crusty, hardcore. I walk into his office. He's like, "What are you doing here? You should be studying. Like, why are you wasting my time?" That's how this started. And so I'm like, sweat's pouring down. I'm like really nervous. He's like, "Well, show me your resume." So I have my resume, and I bring it over to him, and my hands are shaking, and I'm like going through it. And he's like, "This is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid." Then he sees Fairchild Space. He goes, "Wait, you worked at Fairchild Space?" They go, "Yeah, well, yeah." He goes, "They made the A-10 Thunderbolt." I go, "Yes, sir, they did."
They sure did.
He goes, "Tell me more about this." And he was suddenly interested.
You're like, I focused on the screw on the lower quadrant.
Yeah, exactly. And this whole time that I'm like crashing and burning with the chairman, there was this like Doogie Howser looking dude that was like poking his head in the office and like laughing at me. And he actually walks into the office and he sits down on the couch. This guy looked like he was 15 years old. And he's watching me embarrass myself. And so I'm going through my Fairchild Space stuff, and I mentioned to the chairman, "Hey, yeah, I did this stuff called finite element analysis." And this Doogie Howser guy on the couch perks up and he points at me, he goes, "You know how to do finite element analysis?" And I go, "Yeah, who are you?" And he goes, "Well, I'm the chief resident. I'm taking a job here. I'm staying on to work. I'm going to be the new professor of neurosurgery, and I've been looking for someone to do finite element analysis. I want to study the spine. I want to do biomechanical models of the spine." And I said, "Well, I'm your guy." And Dr. Young, the chairman, goes, "All right, it's settled." And I walked out of the chairman's office with a gentleman named Scott Graham, who was the chief resident and who was becoming the new professor, and started research with him literally the next day. And our first paper that we published, which was a biomechanical study of the spine, it made the cover of the Journal of Neurosurgery.
What?
Yeah.
So you're just setting the bar really low for your career of what you can accomplish.
Listen, and so when you're a medical student and you help your professor publish, and if it makes the cover, you're like set, right? So,
right, that's phenomenal.
So they we hit it off. They loved me, and I I worked well together. And so that's how I got into neurosurgery, because frankly, they wanted to keep me around, for as long as possible to continue to publish. And,
right.
And it worked out. And so that's how I got into neurosurgery.
So neurosurgery first assignment, cover of magazine.
Yeah, I know. I kind of got lucky, right?
It's like, where do you go from there?
Well, listen, I mean, I never made the cover again, so it wasn't like it,
But how many people have never made it?
I agree with you, right?
Like, how many people have never made the cover? If you get one and done, that's all that matters.
You're
right. We're coming off of a high LSU baseball season, but how many teams never win the national championship?
I totally agree with you, and I have that publication framed and on the wall still.
As you should.
Almost 30 years ago.
That's like the icebreaker. You walk in, you go, "That's my publication."
That's
all right. What's your question?
You got it.
So you come off of that. You go through med school. You do well, obviously, and you graduate. And then where does that take you from there? Then you do your fellowship, and so then what comes next?
Yeah. So residency. So you become a doctor when you graduate med school, but you get your MD, but you're pretty useless. So you got to go through your training. So 7 years of neurosurgical training to learn how to operate, and then the fellowship. And so the neurosurgery is a really interesting field. There's only about 100 to 120 neurosurgery graduates per year for the entire nation.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
The nation.
So for example, there's only, at the time, I think it's still this way, there was only 2 training programs in all of the state of Virginia, which is a huge state.
Right.
There was the Medical College of Virginia in Richmond, where I trained, and there was UVA. Okay. Neurosurgical training at either of those places for the entire state. That's it. 2 spots, both places. So for Virginia, very populous state, only 4 neurosurgical residents would start training per year. Okay, so you add them all up for the whole country, and it's like maybe around 120. Okay, of those neurosurgical graduates, I'd say half are like crazy and useless. So I'm kind of like demeaning my own profession, but there's
so now we're down to 60. We have 60 qualified
60,
people,
guys who can hold a conversation and tie their own shoelaces. I'm being mean,
right?
You know
right.
what I'm saying? Like it is a profession that kind of attracts some kind of bizarre folks. And
look, I'm a CPA. I get it.
Yeah. So, and just because you're a genius and you ace all the exams doesn't mean you can tie your own shoelaces or you can be a good surgeon. And you can imagine if you were going to put together an MBA team and you picked it based on test scores and not coordination or hand-eye coordination or ability to work as a team.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the neurosurgical profession. So of the 120 or so graduates per year, there's probably 800 to 900 job openings. Okay, you can get a job anywhere in a heartbeat because neurosurgery as a whole is very underserved for most communities. Now, in Miami, there's probably a neurosurgeon on every street corner. San Diego, same thing. New York City. But for most of the nation, it's very underserved. So I didn't really care where I ended up. I wanted a great job. Which is unusual. Most doctors say, hey, I want to live in San Diego. I'm going there. I don't care how much competition there is. But I knew supply and demand. Most things are based on supply and demand.
Right.
I want to go somewhere where there's a huge demand for neurosurgery and there's low supply, and I'm going to be able to flourish. And I want the best job opportunity. So I interviewed everywhere. And of all the jobs in the nation, the job opportunity in Baton Rouge was by far the best.
Repeat that.
The job opportunity in Baton Rouge for neurosurgery was the best. Not even close.
Really?
Best job in the nation. And here's why. You have one group that controls a capital city. There's no competition. So this one group has a stranglehold on the market. They are in private practice, so they're not owned by a hospital system. So you're not working for the man, you're working for yourself, which is important because when you work for yourself, you have ownership, you care about it, you work more, And if you suck, you get run out of town. Okay, so if you open up your own restaurant, you're going to be working a lot harder than if you're working for some franchise and
of course,
the owner, right? So private practice was important to me, and then the icing on the cake, and this is where I think there's an interesting story about entrepreneurship and business, is that these guys, which was the NeuroMedical Center, they owned their own hospital. Not just an ambulatory surgery center, but an actual hospital, which is an amazing business opportunity and also very, very rare.
Right. Like you just don't get asked to come be an owner in a hospital.
Exactly.
This episode of the Patty G Show is brought to you by Cortex. Cortex is the trusted technology partner for small businesses across Louisiana, delivering managed IT, cybersecurity, and smart strategies to help you leverage AI without the confusion. I mean, aren't we all confused by AI nowadays? As a locally owned company, we understand the challenges Louisiana businesses face and provide tailored solutions that keep your operations secure and efficient. Whether you're looking to strengthen your cybersecurity or explore how AI can give your business a competitive edge, Cortex is here to help. Be sure to mention the Patty G Show and receive a free cybersecurity risk and analysis to see where your business stands.
So let me give you a little background. Physician-owned hospitals have been banned. At that time in 2008, had been banned in most states.
Okay.
And the reason is because if you're, an Ochsner of the world, and really it's like Kaiser Permanente and HCA, these massive hospital conglomerates, the last thing you want is a bunch of physicians getting together and becoming your competition. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the way our political system works is whoever hires the best lobbyists and puts up the most money can get a bill passed or law passed. That gives them an advantage, right? So physician-owned hospitals were essentially banned in most states in the nation. There's a few states like Louisiana and Oklahoma and Texas who were very underserved for certain specialties, neurosurgery being one of them. And they realized, hey, we can hardly get any of those 120 neurosurgeons graduating per year to come here at all. And if we don't keep a mechanism or come up with a mechanism to attract them, we're not going to have any. You're going to get in a car accident and you're going to go to the emergency room and there's going to be no neurosurgeon to take care of you or your family. So how do we attract them and how do we keep them? Well, this ban on physician-owned hospitals that Washington, D.C. has, and New York has, and California has, that's stupid. We're not going to ban physicians. Most of them aren't bad people. Like in any profession, there's a few bad apples, but most physicians are good people. Let's let them own hospitals. So Louisiana was one of the states that allowed for physicians to own hospitals. And I'm not talking about a little ambulatory surgery center, which is still, you can do that anywhere, but I'm talking about a legitimate hospital. So I came down here specifically to be part of the spine hospital of Louisiana, which was the NeuroMedical Center's hospital. Now, we also work at Our Lady of the Lake. We work at Baton Rouge General. We work at Ochsner. We cover all those emergency rooms. We take care of the community, and we do a tremendous amount of surgery at those other hospitals. But we have this boutique spine hospital, which is a place for us to deliver excellent care. If you look at the quality metrics for physician-owned hospitals versus the big community hospitals, the physician-owned hospitals always have better infection rates and better outcomes. But it's also just a really good opportunity from a business standpoint. So being a doctor is hard. Our reimbursement's constantly getting cut. Insurance companies are constantly squeezing us. But this hospital that we own provides a good alternate revenue stream to combat all the other pressure that's on us.
Yeah. Well, then you've also got people coming at you for, potential suits or allegations.
You're right.
And you've got
malpractice.
Malpractice. Mm-hmm. They're coming at doctors. It's like they get stuck in that state of if a loved one passes and it was of no one's fault, they're just in a state of grief and they just want a place to blame. And doctors are always the first lick.
Absolutely.
And so they always come after you on that sense. So, no, I love the sense of having a physician-owned hospital. I think it's great, and had a little incident a week or two ago that's all too close about the neurosurgeons here. So kudos to y'all.
All right. You want to talk about it?
I kept my mom alive.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Great.
it's needed here. Definitely needed here for what y'all do.
Yeah. We have a great group. All our surgeons are good.
Yeah.
They're good guys. They work really hard. We're very proud. We still roll up our sleeves. We wake up in the middle of the night and take care of you, no matter whether you're like, uninsured and even a bad person, like we don't discriminate. It's actually illegal. And this is one of the big misunderstandings about healthcare. Like if you just watch certain news networks, they think that doctors, we pick and choose who we want to take care of and
right.
just discriminate based on skin or, your socioeconomic or whatever. That's so false. Like we go to jail. If you come in, we don't treat you exactly how we treat everybody else, and whether you're insured or not, whether we're going to be working for free, because if you're not insured, we're working for free. But we have to treat you exactly the same. If we don't, we lose our license. And so, and that's the way it should be.
Right.
I'm not really complaining. I don't even pay attention to insurance.
It's a human life on the table.
You got it. But the when you're at the tip of the spear like that and you're getting woken up night after night at 2 a.m. to go into the emergency room, you do notice some trends. And it's kind of like, it's kind of the guys that have bad habits that are the ones
that need something at 2 a.m.
Yeah. That's a generalization. Everybody might need you might have an issue at 2 a.m., but you know what I'm saying. So it does, that part of it does make you maybe a little more conservative when when I see someone who continues to use drugs, like IV drug abuse, for example, and they keep getting spinal infections and spinal abscesses or brain abscesses because they keep sticking dirty needles in. That makes me tend to want to crack down on drug dealing, and you're at the tip of the spear, and so all these things that you kind of hear about, like you're having to deal with it. It tends to make you a little more conservative in some ways. I don't think we need to be giving drug dealers a pass in this nation. I think you should throw the book at them because I see the damage that's done.
Right. You're seeing the folks that are using or abusing whatever.
Right. Whether that's the cartels or I don't know. Listen, I'm not like an expert on the drug trade, right? But the whole chain.
You see the out product.
Exactly. And it's and how it can destroy a community and how it can keep me up at night. So.
keeps you on call, keeps you away from the family. Because you have to go and figure something out. No, it's
right, and that's part of the job. I mean, we knew what we're getting into, right? But still, it. And you think about it, the thing that really can eat at you is those people are out there driving cars. Mm-hmm. They could harm you or your family, and that's where you get like, man, I can't believe this guy drove here. What's he doing driving?
Yeah, like how did he
without a license?
Who brought this person in?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, we've been at the hospital like the last 2 or 3 weeks for my mom, and I've noticed there was like a patient on the floor that she was at that had 2 officers 24/7. Mm-hmm. And you start to be like, you look in on the way to the room, you're like, oh, what's happening here? When they gotta do bed change or anything, they step out in the hall, and you're just like, I want to ask you, but I know you're going to tell me nothing.
Right. Yeah, and that whether you're in jail or not, you deserve high quality care.
Right.
But if you think about the cost, right, that we're paying for with our taxes, the incredible cost to have 2 officers around the clock guarding somebody who's in the hospital, in addition to the astronomical
the healthcare costs.
Healthcare costs.
Yeah.
Like, wow, right? No wonder we have a deficit. Like, where'd all the money go? Well, there it is. I don't have any answers, by the way. Right. I don't know how to solve this problem.
You just see the problem.
I'm just thinking, gosh, there goes my tax money.
And you're like, that's what I worked for free for tonight.
Yeah, and I worked for free. And it's illegal for doctors to write off their free work. You cannot write it off.
So you can't even get a deduction for not work. So it's just thank you for your service.
That's right.
Thank you for your volunteer work at that point, right?
That's right. And then, so I'm not trying to bring up politics, but a certain president did ban physician-owned hospitals nationally. So that happened. That happened about, 12 years ago or so, and maybe longer. Anyway. So we cannot grow. We're grandfathered in. Our physician-owned hospitals.
So now it's nationwide ban.
Nationwide ban. So a certain president was lobbied.
Yeah.
took the money, like politicians do, left and right. They all do the same thing. They take the money. Whoever writes them, whoever has the best lobbyists usually gets their way. And there's a physician-owned hospital ban. And so no new physician-owned hospitals, even in states where it was illegal. And we're grandfathered in, but we cannot grow. We're busting at the seams.
Add locations.
Not even expand the hospital at all.
You can't expand your existing footprint.
Nope, we cannot add a single hospital bed. They count beds. We cannot.
So it's however many beds you had at that time, that's it.
Yep. How is that for handcuffs on? And even if you're doing a fantastic job and you become, really, our hospital is the best spine hospital in America. Okay, it's one of the only hospitals where only spine surgery is done. And if you put our metrics up against every other hospital that does spine surgery, we have superior metrics. So you could say in Baton Rouge, the Spine Hospital of Louisiana is the best place to have spine surgery in America, yet we can't add a bed. Now, there's an interesting battle brewing.
Okay.
Because who pays for all this healthcare? The insurance companies, and they're pretty powerful too. In fact, the insurance companies are probably the insurance lobby is probably slightly more powerful than the hospital lobby. The insurance companies have realized an interesting thing. They said, wow, when our patients have surgery at a physician-owned hospital, not only do they do a lot better, and they don't need to come back for more surgery, and they're not getting expensive infections or some expensive complications, but it's half the cost. We should look into this further. So the insurance companies have now become a supporter of physician-owned hospitals because they realize, gosh, with the rising costs of healthcare, the best way to keep the cost of healthcare down is to take the expensive, vertically integrated hospital systems, patients, and pull them out into a much more affordable, streamlined, efficient model, which is what physician-owned hospitals do.
Welcome to the brand new Falaya mobile app. We took all the same tech that's helped hundreds of people sell their homes themselves and packed it into an easy-to-use app for your phone. When you download the Falaya mobile app on either the Apple or Android App Store, you'll immediately be able to see the power of this game-changing tool. From the seller's dashboard, you can navigate to all the information that you need. We intentionally separated everything into key groups, such as tasks to be completed, buyer leads for your listing, and contact information for everyone involved through closing. When you get an offer on your property, you can simply review and respond all within the app. No matter where you are in the world, you'll be able to monitor everything that's going on with your property from listed to sold. It's truly the power of Falaya in the palm of your hand. Download the app and see for yourself. Falaya, it's real estate reimagined.
Wow. So we suddenly have friends in the insurance companies, and nobody really likes insurance companies. I actually don't like insurance companies at all because they're, for all the reasons everybody, all the headlines, we have to deal with that. But they're smart. They're really, really smart. They mine the data and they realize that physician-owned hospitals provide a superior product for half the cost. Why would we muzzle that?
Yeah, why would we ever want to pull money out of our pockets?
Well, right, but
as the insurance people, right? They're like,
right,
how can we get our
right? That's how insurance works.
Yeah.
But if insurance costs go down, then our premiums go down.
Correct.
So if you want to talk about some of the things Louisiana could do better, right? One is to lower the cost of insurance for no matter what type of insurance. And so the way you do that is you lower the cost for the insurance companies. And then there should be, I'm not saying they're going to pass it on, but they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're supposed to give their customers a lower rate on their premiums to kind of help the whole system.
Yes, that's how it's supposed to work.
So outside of, being a neurosurgeon and everything, you have a few other interesting background hobbies or activities, one of which is going very fast on the ground. What is that about? Race car driver.
Well, yes and no. I'm not into new fancy cars, so I like old cars.
So what's your So what is that classified as? Give us an example.
Well, I like all old cars,
right?
Whether they're I collect vintage Broncos.
Okay.
So before Broncos got expensive, I was buying vintage Broncos, like kind of rare ones, like ones you've never heard of. But I started collecting them like 17 years ago when I first moved to Baton Rouge. It was a friend of mine had a vintage Bronco. I loved it so much. I started like buying them in any condition, and I've kind of slowed down, but I think I have about 25 vintage Broncos now. 25?
Do
Yeah.
you have any duplicates or all unique Broncos?
A few are the same model type, but they're all really rare models. Like I could geek out on Broncos.
Give us two examples or a few.
Okay, well, if you're a muscle car guy, you've heard of the Yanko Camaro, right? So
yep.
The most valuable, one of the most valuable muscle cars is a Camaro that was modified, hot rodded by the dealership. There was a dealership in Pennsylvania called the Yanko was a family, and they owned the dealership, and they got permission from Chevrolet to soup up the Camaro, and so and that was called the Yanko Camaro, and it became a very rare, very collectible version of the Camaro. Ford did the same thing. They allowed certain dealers who were very handy, who had excellent mechanic shops, to hot rod the Ford Broncos. So there's about 5 different versions of the Ford Bronco that were these dealership modified Broncos. The most well-known is called a Baja Bronco, which was modified in LA, California. And they made only about 400 of them. And so that's probably the most well-known, really rare collectible Bronco. So if a Baja Bronco were to cross like the Mecum auction block and it was in decent shape, it's going to sell for about $150,000 to $200,000, depending on on what of condition it's in. And so there's other Broncos like that. Now so I have those Broncos, and I was buying them before they were
popular.
Right. So I have a Baja. Actually, I have probably the finest Baja in existence. It's a Survivor. It's original paint, original interior, original anything. Everything. It's never been touched. I found it in Boise, Idaho, and I bought it for practically nothing about 15 years ago. And so my wife used to give me a hard time, and then she now realizes that this Bronco collection is probably worth a lot of money, and so she's like, "Good job on those Broncos."
She's like,
honey.
"Great investment, honey.
Yeah,
this is great. You want to buy another one?"
Yeah. But for 10 years, it was like, "Not again."
Why do we still have these Broncos?
Yeah.
So you've got just a ridiculous Bronco collection, man.
I do. So much so that Haggerty Insurance came down and did a story on me.
Really?
Yeah. It was. They had a little, segment. This is why I drive.
Yeah.
And you can Google like Eric's Bronco.
Okay.
And it'll come up. And I don't know if the video is still active or not, but the print story is still there.
Okay, I'll have to find that, because I love old cars, but not clearly as much as you to find those finds when you found them. But so did you drive race cars? Did you not drive race cars? Is Kevin lying to us?
So the whole race car thing is like my bucket list thing for most of my life. Being an old car guy, my bucket list thing was to do the most prestigious old car rally in the world, which is called the Mille Miglia. Okay. It's Italian for the 1,000 miles.
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen the new Ferrari movie with Adam Driver playing Enzo Ferrari?
I've not seen the new Ferrari movie.
Okay. You need to see that movie. That whole movie is about the Mille Miglia.
Okay. Yes.
So back in the day, the Mille Miglia was like Le Mans. It was the Daytona 500 of Europe. Okay. It was the most prestigious car race starting back in 1927, and it was a real race and was part of the World Championship for racing. And it was this 1,000 miles that started near Milan in a town called Brescia, and would go down to Rome and back up. 1,000-mile race on Italian roads. And if you wanted to sell cars, you had to win this race. So all of the car manufacturers that are brand names today, Ferrari, Porsche, Jaguar, Aston Martin, BMW, Mercedes. The reason they're around is because they won the Mille Miglia back in the day. And there are 1,000 other car manufacturers that you have never heard of that once upon a time existed that went bankrupt, because if you don't win that race, you don't sell cars.
Wow.
So the Ferrari movie that came out about a year ago with Adam Driver, excellent movie, it's centered around Ferrari's need to win the Mille Miglia back in 1957 because he was going bankrupt. He needed to sell cars. He had to win that race. When you win the race, you sell a bunch of cars. You lose the race, no one wants your car.
Right.
Okay. What happened was that race became extremely dangerous, and the movie's about that too. The cars kept getting faster and faster and faster. The Italian roads stayed the same, crappy Italian roads. And
right.
So people were dying left and right. And in 1957, there was this terrible accident where a bunch of people were killed. And they banned the Mille Miglia. They banned it. Okay. In the 80s, it came back as a vintage car race. But to enter it, you have to have a vehicle that's the same type, make and model of the same car that once participated in the race. It doesn't have to be an actual race car that once participated, but it has to be the same make and model.
Right, of something that has competed.
So so you have a car from 1927 to 1957 that once participated in that race, then you can enter the race. And this is like a big national to-do in Italy. You do the same 1,000 miles, but it's now broken up over like 4 days. The entire country comes up and lines the road. It's a lot like the Tour de France, where all the cyclists and people are lining the road, waving
right.
flags. Same thing. All the locals line the roads. You go from small medieval village to small medieval village, and in your vintage car, and you get cheered on, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's about 500 cars do it at a time. It's very hard to get into because you might have a 356 vintage Porsche, but they've got 100 other 356s that have applied to be in the Mille Miglia. Why are they going to pick yours, right? So you have to have something. You have to have usually a rare car to get in, and so it's very selective. And so that was my bucket list item for my whole life. I wanted to do it. So much so that I spent years looking for the right car. It was really, you have to have the right car. So I spent years looking for the right car, and so I finally found that car about 5 years ago, and that car was a 1956 Ferrari 250 GT Boano, which is a really old Ferrari, kind of like, imagine like an aluminum tin can with wheels. Like, these cars are not, like, they're very difficult to drive. They're not fun. There's no air conditioning. Yeah, they're loud. They're very uncomfortable. But that was a car that would get me into the race, and I found it, and it was basically the only vintage Ferrari that I could afford. It's not one of these, super expensive vintage Ferraris. Yeah, but it's kind of like a starter level.
Yeah, but a deep cut Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and a solid investment, right? So if you look at, like, you can Google it, like, the two best investments you can make from a car standpoint over the last 30 years were vintage Broncos and vintage Ferraris.
So you're like right in there with the smart move.
Yeah, so it was one of those few smart things I've done. And so it's just like a Monet or a Van Gogh. I mean, they're not making any more of it. Ferrari's one of the top brands there is. And so you can't go wrong. If you buy a vintage Ferrari, you're not going to lose your money. Over time, it's going to be probably outperform the stock market. So that's kind of the rationalization I used to make the purchase. And then it's really interesting. So I bought this car. I found it in New England, and the guy who owned it for 40 years, and he was probably, I never met him. This deal was brokered by a guy, but the guy who sold it to me was probably in his 80s, and they didn't have the internet. So I get this car. I'm like, man, I wonder if there's any cool provenance on it. I wonder if I can Google it and find anything cool. Within 24 hours, I did a deep dive internet search, and they the last decade, they've come out with all these archives of the Mille Miglia and vintage car races. Almost immediately, I found a picture of my car with Enzo Ferrari standing next to it.
Your exact car.
My exact
like
car.
your VIN.
My car, yeah. So my car actually did race in the 1956 Mille Miglia.
No.
It was an original car, which is, remember I told you I spent years looking for the right car.
I was going to say, like, how do you find that?
It took years, and this was a golden ticket car. You get this car, they're probably never going to turn you away from the Mille Miglia, ever. You can enter it every year forever, and you're going to get it.
You got a picture of Enzo Ferrari next to it.
And then I found that the value of my car, I mean, when you find something like that, Enzo, with your car, you immediately, so
how did you verify it was your car?
Oh, because
the guy had it in the glove box.
Well, so yeah, so my car, the ownership, if you look at who owned it, and there's pictures of the owner, the original race car driver on the race team. There's with Enzo and all his top drivers from that year.
Dude, that's incredible. So did you then drive?
Yeah, so I've done it twice now.
Twice?
Yeah, I've done it twice, and so it's not a vacation. It's very grueling.
I was about to say, that's not an easy 1,000 miles.
1,000 miles. These cars are very hard to drive. They're very unforgiving. You have a V12 strapped to your crotch. There's no heat shield. That heat comes right in to your crotch. The rubber on the bottom of my shoes is melting. And you're stuck in this car 12 hours a day for 4 days. And it's not about speed in these rallies because they're on public roads. You're not allowed to. We all speed, but you're not supposed to. But it's not about
allegedly he speeds. Let's be clear.
Yeah,
well, it's a different country.
You're gonna speed, but the cool thing about an old car is when you're doing 60, it feels like you're doing 200.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, these races are not about speed. It's about accuracy, and that's a whole nother topic. But the most precise car wins the race. But it's a big deal. There's a big award ceremony, and the first year I did it, we were the top Americans out of about 20 American teams. Overall, I think I finished around 80th out of 500 teams.
Yeah,
but we're
still
the top,
incredible. Yeah.
top American team, and then the second time I did it, we were the second American team. Came in second, but we improved our overall place by 20 or 30 spots.
Wow. So you still have this car today?
I do have it. It's actually in Italy right now, getting some work done on it.
Okay.
And then I skipped the Mille Miglia this year, but they have a rally, a father-son rally, where you can take your son on a drive through the Swiss Alps.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm doing that in October.
Very cool. So, I know you got to get out of here soon, but do you have any time to talk about you now going really fast in the air and being a pilot?
Well, yeah, Kevin's told you a lot. I don't actually fly myself, and I don't want to come off as some maybe it's too late, but some rich jerk off doctor who has all these toys. Maybe it's too late for that, but
you're a collector.
Yeah, a collector. Yeah. So I own a plane with a few other guys, and once you start flying private, you
don't want to go back,
you don't
right?
want to go back. Yeah. So I just give you an example. So this last weekend, my son, I have a 12-year-old who's really into baseball. He's eaten up with baseball, and he was playing in Pigeon Forge for the week as part of his World Series. And I flew up privately on last Friday to pick him up and my wife and my older son. And as a surprise, instead of flying back to Baton Rouge, they didn't know it, we flew to Omaha. And I took them to the championship
there on
game.
Sunday?
Yeah, we were there Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, my gosh.
So I surprised my family. And then immediately after the game on Sunday, after the national championship, we flew back because I had work on Monday.
Yeah.
So when you fly private, you can do stuff like that.
It's easy to go to and from, and it's very convenient.
It's very convenient. And, if it allows me to work an extra 6 hours or an extra day, it actually pays for itself.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Lake Men's Health Center with Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group. Guys, I know it's tough to get out and go to the doctor. I know it's challenging to find time in our busy days, but I promise you, signing up to be a part of this group with Dr. Curtis Chastain and Dr. Tyler Boudreau. You won't regret it for several reasons, but most of those being the fact of the time it saves, where you're able to get in on the same day, get that appointment done, and spend that time you need to talk with them about what your health goals and concerns are, as well as ensuring that the financial investments you have, you will be able to live out and see those come to fruition. So if you're an investing guy, you know all about and planning for the future and investing in the future. There's no other more important thing to invest in than your health. Make sure you go check them out, Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group Men's Health Center, and tell them Patty G sent you.
So before we get you out of here, we have a set list of questions we ask every guest. One is, what is the first thing you would do, or what is something you did as a kid you wish you could still do today?
Well, I'm trying to think if I did anything fun when I was a child. I don't know if I had a happy childhood. You know, so when I think about my childhood, I had a brother that was 9 years older than me, and he was a half brother. And I'm the only child from my dad's second marriage. So my dad had a 60s marriage, a 70s marriage, and an 80s marriage. I'm the 70s kid. So my dad was like a drummer in a rock and roll band when he was young, and he had his first child very young. That's my older brother. That marriage didn't work out, and then he married my mom, and my mom basically raised my older half brother, even though it wasn't, she wasn't her son. And so some of my fondest memories in life were playing with my older brother. And if you have a brother that's much older, you're not fighting with them, you more like idolize them. And so right. I idolized my older brother. He was so cool. He did all this cool stuff. He'd build forts, and he'd build booby traps in the backyard, and obstacle courses and bonfires. And so some of the things that I miss most about my childhood were those magical moments hanging out with my older brother. And so that, that's what I miss most when I think about my childhood.
I like it. So what are 3 lessons you've learned along the way in your career, in collecting Broncos, in driving the Mille?
Yeah, well, I think what we didn't talk about was all the failures I've had. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. When I bet on myself, I do okay. So when we do something healthcare related, it normally works out. But I've invested in just about everything, and most of the time I've failed, and I've learned a lot. In fact, I think I want to write a book called Dumb Doctor.
Dr. Dum Dum?
Dr. Dum Dum. That's great. That sounds better. And literally I could, because look, my dad didn't go to college, and I didn't really have anybody to mentor me from a business standpoint. And I had, a gut that I'd often listen to, and sometimes it was great. So coming to Baton Rouge and joining the NeuroMedical Center was the best thing I could have ever done. But there's been so many other things that I regret doing. I tried to do restaurants, mega failure. I've tried to invest in oil and gas multiple times. It blew up on me. Tried to develop a port.
Like an ocean port.
Yeah, like a Port Fourchon, but in Cameron Parish on the Calcasieu Ship Channel. So I've done some things that haven't worked out, and I've learned a lot from those mistakes. And I feel like you have to go through that, through those mistakes, because that's the best way to learn. And what I've learned is, stop doing things like that, and make sure that you have a good business partner that you've done a background check on, and that you don't go into business with anybody that doesn't have a certified, that you don't have a copy of their certified financial statement. Okay. Because I once co-guaranteed a loan with somebody who I thought had money, and he was actually already bankrupt. How was I supposed to know without? Yeah. The bank knew. The bank didn't.
And they were like, "Oh no! You just come sign.
You come sign this too." The bank didn't tell me. And so listen, there's so many pitfalls for young entrepreneurs, and I've made most of those mistakes, and I've gotten more sophisticated every time. But really, what I've learned is that I need to stick to what I'm good at, and it's hard to do a startup if it's not something that's already up and running, that's already cash flowing. It's almost impossible, no matter how good your idea is.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little bit gun shy now from investing in anything that isn't already up and running, throwing off money.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's a startup, you can easily add another zero to whatever budget item they send you.
Yeah, invariably what happens in almost every startup is the money runs out, and the people that are getting salaried, they're fine with that because they've been getting paid the whole time, and you as the entrepreneur or the angel investor is out your money.
Mm-hmm.
They're out nothing, and
they may even be ahead.
They may even be ahead, and you're in a really difficult position of wanting to chase that with more money, right? So invariably you have to decide, do I double down on this bad investment or do I walk away? And that is very common and very, very difficult situation to be in.
Yeah, and one that a lot of people find themselves in that don't have the failures quick to realize, let's analyze this a little bit more.
Absolutely, and I've been stuck in some of those for over a decade. I have probably about 6 of those.
Wow. That you're still stuck in?
1 or 2. Most of them eventually worked their way through. Like the massive loan that I co-guaranteed, I had to pay that all back myself, and it took a long time.
Wow.
So it's not always easy just to walk away. I mean, these things can really be an albatross around your neck for a while.
Yeah, and then you get tied up but unable to do anything else until you resolve that issue.
Absolutely. Yeah, so my advice to people starting out is don't fall into that trap where you're funding a company and everybody else is just taking the money. That's not a good way to do it. If there's any assets, you have to have like some type of seniority on the assets. So if it goes bankrupt, you get something out of it. Otherwise, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Escrow your money. Make sure you know where the money's going. You don't want to just allow people to spend at will, because the money will all be gone. Make sure it's escrowed and milestones are met. Don't pay anybody till the work's done. Do a background check on all your business partners. Make sure you have copies of their personal financial statements, and make sure you have a really, really, really good attorney to craft all the operating agreements. If you have a bad attorney or no attorney at all, or if somebody comes to you with their contract or their operating agreement, do not sign it. Find yourself a good attorney to make sure it's negotiated to protect you.
Yeah, that's playbook that everybody needs. So what is something you love about Baton Rouge?
I love LSU. What a great town, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's the mecca of college sports.
Yeah.
And if you love college sports, which I do, there's no better place to be. So I've really, really enjoyed being here, following LSU. My 2 boys go to the LSU lab school, K through 12, so they basically go to school at LSU.
You get to drive and see the stately oaks and magnolias the whole time, bringing them to school every day.
Yeah, I don't have the benefit of driving them to school, but I just love the fact that they go there, and I'm never bored here because I love college sports.
Right.
And if you need a little something more sophisticated or cosmopolitan, New Orleans isn't too far away. So if you want to try some new restaurants and you feel like you've been to all of them in Baton Rouge, just go to New Orleans.
Yeah, you're close enough.
Yeah.
And there's new restaurants pop up in Baton Rouge that it's almost not impossible, but dang near close to visit every single one. Yeah. And then remember, you've visited every single one.
That's right.
For the final question, man, what can I do to help you?
Well, I feel like you already have. I think you've been kind of my therapist here. I feel so much better after unloading all this on you. And
oh, good.
Talking. How can you help me? I don't know, man. I feel like I probably need more friends. Maybe somebody will listen to this podcast and decide to support the NeuroMedical Center, which would be great.
Yeah.
and I'm sure we'll cross paths again. And
Oh, I'm sure. Look, if you ever need help changing the spark plugs on the Broncos, I got you.
All right, well, I do. I'm actually in between mechanics, so.
Well, I'm no licensed mechanic. I'm just a guy that shows up with a six-pack and says, let's fix it.
Perfect. Well,
So I appreciate, man. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story. And yeah, no doubt we'll continue to cross paths, so to speak. So
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
absolutely. And thank you, everybody else, for listening and watching and for tuning into this week's episode of the Patty G Show. We're here every single week, and we'll see you on the next one.